What the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
Well, of course, the rapper on Montreal Now is James MENNIE of the Montreal Gazette. Good afternoon, James.
Hey, Trudy. How you doing?
We're doing pretty well. Obviously, public health care dominating some headlines this week. Today, we just finished an interview with the specialists, the Quebec Federation of Specialists, about this, raising the question, is public health care dying in Quebec? What do you think, James?
I really think it is, and honestly, Trudy, I don't know whether or not that's in the long term. That may be a good thing. I'm not entirely sure, but what I do know is when my colleague Aaron DeFelt once again writes a story pointing out that the highest number of doctors who made the jump into the private sector is in Quebec, 780 compared to like a dozen in the rest of the country. Although in Quebec, there's nothing that, unlike in Ontario, say if you go into the private sector, you have a cap on how much you can bill. That's no higher than what you would make in the public sector. But yeah, I'm getting the impression that more and more. I mean, here's a perfect example. I had to go for a test. I was scheduled to go for a test at the MUHC. Okay. And what happened was I was scheduled, in fact, the test was supposed to be at Lachine General, and that fell through. That was my fault. I had to cancel. Long story short, I get a call back from a private company that has been contracted out to pick up the slack on doing various tests and so on and so forth. And everything went great. Everything went fine. But I'm kind of wondering, it's like, I'm getting what I'm supposed to be getting in the public sector. However, the public sector, and this is pretty fundamental, it's a CT scan. And they go in and everything's fine, but you wonder, are we in fact embracing, whether we like it or not, and because we have no choice, a weird kind of hybrid between the two systems, and will the trend continue? Growing number of people, whether through employment or whether through their own choice, are finding themselves with private medical insurance, which covers a certain amount of procedures and so on. I mean, I'll be frank with you. My involvement with the public medical system in Quebec has not been bad. That said, I know for a fact there are people who have had absolutely nightmarish experiences. But the question is, does ensuring the primacy of the public medical care system involve making sure everyone gets the same lousy level of service across the province? Or is it possible that we can start making parentheses or start making exceptions when it's absolutely necessary? The physician you were talking about, specialists and so on. You are more likely to get your hands on a few pounds of kryptonite in Quebec than you are to see a dermatologist. So, I mean, this is how crazy things have gone. But for a lot of people out there, and it's not, it's certainly not a generational thing, but for a lot of Quebecers out there, they should be at least routinely seeing a dermatologist, and it's simply not happening.
Further to your experience, we just had a text in from Vicky who says that she had to go back and forth for a liver biopsy, and she said the waiting list is 2 years. The clinic has to fax. And I had to install an app for faxing. OMG, really, faxing in 2024. And the rep from the Federation of Medical Specialists said, yeah, the technology is not working to the advantage of everybody in the system. It's one area where we really could catch up to kind of bring the system into modern day.
But what scares the hell out of me is that we're not talking about someone who threw out their back. A liver biopsy is a pretty important medical procedure.
Yeah.
And this poor woman's being made to wait or readjust your phone. We'll try and get back to you with mid-century modern technology. That's completely unacceptable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Shall we talk about language?
Why not? I mean, it's been so rare since we touched upon that topic. Yeah. But no, really, a lot of people And if you haven't seen it, go over to MontrealGazette.com. My colleague Andy Riga has once again done a bit of a deep dive, got some access to information requests out there. And we have discovered how many Quebecers actually took advantage of the provision in Bill 96. And this was mentioned, actually. This is not something they snuck in. We actually mentioned this, but because of all the other outrages in Bill 96, this kind of got short shrift. But in Bill 96, you are allowed to file a complaint against your employer if you believe you're suffering from psychological harassment given your ability to speak another language or because you're a monoglot francophone in Quebec. I'm not making this up. This is for real stuff. And, of course, we decided to say, well, the bad news is that this preposterous regulation exists, is that this creation of Francois Legault that really, part of Francois Legault's legislative agenda is based on the presumption that all Quebecers are lily-livered, little Kevins and Brendas who are frightened of everything and need someone to complain to and are constantly under threat and are looking over their shoulders every single second of their life. And the fact is, over the past 2 years, there have only been 3 dozen complaints that have been filed. 12 were eventually withdrawn. 7 were settled. 7 were deemed inadmissible. Some are still being processed. It's like, when you think about it, the good news is that out of a province of 9 million people, there are only 38 people, as far as we know, because we don't know if maybe the same person filed 2 or 3 complaints. There are only 38 complaints filed, which does my heart some good, even though we are still dealing with this completely, ridiculous legislative paranoid perspective of Francois Legault and his entourage of Anglophobes. But I guess one would presume those numbers are not going to go up. These are a total for 2 years. But once again, it just goes to show you this is when you say it out loud and you look at what the criteria of the regulations are, it just beggars belief that on the one hand, you and I just got through talking about a woman waiting 2 years for a liver biopsy result, and now we're talking about this.
Yeah. And we're talking about 38 complaints and so few of them actually leading anywhere, so few of them upheld, at a time when the Legault government wants us to believe that the French language is under siege and people have to fight for their right to work in French, and how it's under constant assault every day and their ability to work in their language is being eroded. And you get 38 complaints over 2 years. But
this is why I see a silver lining here as well, because I really, maybe I'm being naive, but I like to think that Francophone Quebec has actually figured out the grift. That right now, the next time Francois Legault opens his yap about, protecting the French language, the identity, the culture, the next time he's Monsieur le Curé or this guy who's, the commander of the colony in his little stockade, defending the founders of Quebec from all these terrible forces surrounded against it. I think a lot of people are just going to give him an eye roll and say, really move on. And once again, backhandedly, it's kind of weird because compared to Francois Legault, if we believe the polls, the Parti Québécois is a more rational choice. What we as Anglophones, we might want to hope that changes down the road. But it just goes to show you how utterly out of gas, how utterly unimaginative, and yet how utterly stubborn the Legault government is. Because, none of this is going to change until the next election comes around.
Who knew that day was going to come for Anglos, that the better choice would be the PQ? Who knew? Shall we dive into Weird making a comeback?
Well, I just found it kind of cute because all this time, and I got to tell you, I've seen some names floating around. I like to think there was some evil genius behind Kamala Harris's campaign for the presidency. For years, literally for like 8 years, we've had people trying to go after Donald Trump. He's a grifter. He's a sexual predator. He may have been a traitor. He's just absolutely insufferable. And what they have done is, rather than sort of look at his character, because mainstream media, who as far as I'm concerned in the States, are in the tank for Donald Trump, I think rather than that old thing of gee, which of these candidates would you rather sit down and have a beer with? I think they're really trying to make Donald Trump and his entourage and his followers and the entire MAGA movement appear so literally weird that these, they're looking at them. Never mind, these tremendous sins. Are these the kind of people you'd want to be seated next to in a restaurant? And I think that's coming to the fore. It's been very, very effective so far. They've been running a lot of pictures just out of Mar-a-Lago, just of various MAGA events, just, using the one word weird, and it seems to be very, very effective. But I wouldn't be surprised if in the end, Donald Trump, who has advanced so far in his political career by appealing to people's sensibilities, may just turn around and not be someone you want to be seen hanging around with. And nothing more complicated than that, nothing more, no greater moral debate than that. You don't want to vote for the guy. Why? Because the guy's weird.
James MENNIE of the Gazette, thanks very much.
Demain.